Most people think burning stubborn fat and calming inflammation requires stricter diets, longer workouts, or cutting out every food they enjoy. But the truth is far simpler and far more powerful. Your body already knows how to heal, how to burn stored fat, and how to reduce inflammation. It just needs the right signals. And those signals often come from what you choose to eat. Today, I want to show you foods that don't fight against your system, but work with it. Foods that support your hormones, improve metabolic flexibility, and help your body switch back into its natural fat-burning mode. When you understand how they work inside your system, the results no longer feel like a struggle. They feel like a natural response your body was waiting for. The body naturally knows how to burn fat when given the correct nutritional signals. This is one of the most misunderstood truths in health and weight loss. We often assume that fat burning requires more effort, more restriction, or more discipline. Yet the human body is designed with built-in mechanisms that regulate energy, store fuel, release it, and heal inflammation when the right internal environment is created. Every cell operates with its own intelligence, constantly responding to hormones, nutrients, and stress signals. When these signals are balanced, the body naturally shifts into fat-burning mode without resistance. When the signals are disrupted by processed foods, constant snacking, or hormonal imbalance, the body becomes confused, holding on to fat as a protective response rather than a failure of willpower. Understanding this difference is where real transformation begins, because fat loss is not about starving the body, but about guiding it back to the state it was designed to operate in. Your metabolism is not broken. It's simply reacting to the inputs it receives every day. When insulin is constantly elevated because of frequent eating or high-sugar foods, the body interprets this as a signal to store energy rather than burn it. When inflammation rises due to processed oils, toxins, or poor sleep, the body shifts its priority to survival instead of fat burning. But the moment these obstacles begin to lower, the body starts awakening its built-in machinery that was programmed over thousands of years to efficiently use stored fat as fuel. This is why in traditional cultures where eating patterns were simpler and food was closer to nature, obesity and chronic inflammation were rare. Their bodies operated in harmony with the signals from the foods they consumed, allowing metabolism to stay flexible rather than locked in fat storage mode. When you give your body the right foods, something powerful happens. Hormones start to stabilize, energy levels rise, hunger begins to regulate itself, and inflammation begins to calm. You aren't forcing your body to lose fat. You are allowing it. This shift is subtle at first, but the signals you send to your daily meals can completely reshape the metabolic environment. A nutrient-dense food can lower inflammation within hours. A healthy fat can stabilize blood sugar almost immediately. A single anti-inflammatory compound can influence how your cells communicate, how your mitochondria produce energy, and how your body chooses between burning fat or storing it. These subtle changes accumulate over days and weeks, creating an internal rhythm where fat burning becomes a natural background process rather than a constant struggle. Your body has always been capable of burning fat efficiently, but modern eating patterns have drowned out the signals that activate this process. Instead of long periods where insulin naturally lowers and fat can be released, we now live in a world of constant eating, ultra-processed foods, hidden sugars, and oily snacks that trigger inflammation. The body responds by preserving fat because it interprets these signals as instability. But when you remove these disruptions and replace them with foods that reassure the body, the natural fat-burning pathways reawaken. Hormones like insulin, ghrelin, cortisol, and leptin begin to fall into alignment. Instead of intense cravings driven by unstable blood sugar, hunger becomes more predictable and calm. Instead of inflammation forcing the body into defense mode, cells shift back to efficient energy use. The human body thrives on simplicity, rhythm, and consistency. It is not designed for constant metabolic chaos. The right foods send a message that the environment is safe, stable, and supportive, allowing fat stores to be released instead of protected. Foods rich in antioxidants reduce oxidative stress and allow mitochondria to function more efficiently, increasing your ability to burn fat at rest. Foods high in healthy fats provide a clean, long-lasting energy source that prevents insulin spikes. Foods with natural fiber slow digestion and help the body maintain metabolic flexibility. Each bite communicates with hormones, enzymes, and cells, shaping the body's internal conditions in ways far more profound than most people realize. Fat loss becomes easier when you begin working with your biology instead of fighting against it. You stop relying on willpower and start relying on physiology. You no longer chase short-term results, but create long-term changes at the cellular level. When you understand that your body is not the enemy, but a highly adaptive system responding to every signal you give it, you begin to see that the path to fat burning and lower inflammation has always been inside you, waiting for the right conditions to activate. Chronic inflammation blocks fat burning and disrupts hormonal balance. This is one of the hidden reasons so many people struggle with stubborn weight, no matter how hard they try. Inflammation is not always loud or dramatic. Most of the time it works quietly beneath the surface, affecting your metabolism, energy, digestion, and ability to burn fat without you realizing it. When the body is inflamed, it interprets this state as a sign of stress or danger. In times of stress, the body does not prioritize fat loss. It shifts into preservation mode, holding on to energy, stores, slowing down metabolic processes, and altering hormonal signals to prepare for what it perceives as a threat. This is why some people feel stuck even when they are eating less or exercising more. The inflammation is overpowering the metabolic messages that should otherwise help them burn fat naturally. Inflammation interferes most strongly with hormones, and hormones are the rulers of metabolism. Insulin, cortisol, leptin, ghrelin, thyroid hormones, and sex hormones all play a role in determining how your body uses energy. When inflammation rises, insulin sensitivity drops. The body becomes less efficient at handling glucose, leading to higher insulin levels. And when insulin stays high, fat burning shuts off because the body is locked into storage mode. At the same time, inflammation disrupts leptin, the hormone responsible for satiety and long-term fat regulation. When leptin signaling becomes damaged, the brain stops receiving accurate messages about hunger and fullness, leading to cravings, overeating, or feeling hungry even after eating. This hormonal chaos makes fat loss feel like an uphill battle, even when someone is doing everything right. Another way inflammation affects fat burning is by damaging mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses inside your cells responsible for generating energy. When mitochondria are inflamed and stressed, they cannot efficiently burn fat for fuel. They become slow, sluggish, and overwhelmed. Instead of burning stored fat, they rely more on quick energy sources, which keeps the body dependent on sugar and carbohydrates. This cycle creates unstable energy, frequent hunger, mood swings, and even more inflammation. Over time, this metabolic stress causes the body to accumulate more fat, especially around the belly, where inflammatory markers tend to concentrate. Many people think belly fat is simply a cosmetic issue, but in reality, it is deeply connected to chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalance, and metabolic dysfunction. Inflammation also alters cortisol, the primary stress hormone. When inflammation rises, cortisol is constantly triggered to regulate the body's inflammatory response. But chronic cortisol elevation increases abdominal fat storage and makes the body less responsive to fat-burning signals. This is why people under stress often gain weight even without overeating. Inflammation keeps the stress response activated, creating a loop where cortisol rises, fat accumulates, energy drops, and cravings increase. This cycle can continue for years unless something interrupts it by reducing inflammation at the root level. Even low-grade inflammation, undetectable without specialized tests, can significantly slow down metabolism. Processed foods, refined oils, excess sugar, artificial additives, poor sleep, environmental toxins, and chronic stress all contribute to this silent inflammation. Most people live in a state of constant exposure to these triggers, meaning their bodies are constantly fighting a low-level war inside. And while the body is dealing with this internal fire, fat burning becomes secondary. Healing becomes a priority and energy storage becomes the backup plan. This is why lowering inflammation is one of the most effective ways to restart fat loss naturally and effortlessly. When inflammation begins to decrease, the change inside the body is profound. Insulin rebalances, allowing cells to release stored fat. Hormones become more predictable, reducing cravings and emotional eating. Mitochondria become more efficient, producing steady energy and burning fat more consistently throughout the day. Cortisol stabilizes, lowering belly fat accumulation. The body stops clinging to fat and begins to trust the environment again. This shift doesn't require extreme dieting or punishing workouts. It only requires restoring balance at the cellular level. The foods you eat can either fuel inflammation or fight it. Anti-inflammatory foods help calm the internal stress response, allowing the body to operate in a state where fat burning can finally activate. With the right choices, you turn off the signals of danger and turn on the signals of healing. The body begins to release water retention, reduce oxidative stress, and repair damaged hormones. Fat burning becomes smoother, steadier, and more predictable. The struggle fades because you're no longer fighting against your own biology. You're working with it. Certain foods activate metabolic pathways that accelerate fat loss. This is one of the most transformative principles anyone can learn on their health journey. Most people think of food only as calories, something that either makes them gain weight or lose it depending on the amount they consume. But the body does not simply respond to calories. It responds to information. Every food you eat sends biochemical signals that instruct your metabolism on what to do next. Some foods tell the body to store energy, slow down fat burning, and spike insulin. Others send the opposite message. They activate fat-burning hormones, lower inflammation, stabilize blood sugar, and encourage the body to tap into stored fat for fuel. Understanding this difference is what separates those who constantly struggle with weight from those who can lose fat more effortlessly. Metabolism is governed by pathways that determine whether your body burns fat or stores it. These pathways are heavily influenced by hormones like insulin, glucagon, leptin, adiponectin, and thyroid hormones. The right foods trigger signals that enhance metabolic flexibility, the ability of the body to switch between burning glucose and burning fat. When metabolic flexibility is high, the body can smoothly transition into fat-burning mode, especially during periods between meals. When metabolic flexibility is low, the body becomes dependent on quick-burning sugar, which leads to cravings, energy crashes, and more fat storage. Foods that support metabolic flexibility play a crucial role in activating the body's natural fat-burning systems. Healthy fats, for example, send a powerful signal to the body that stabilizes blood sugar and lowers insulin. When insulin stays low, the fat-burning hormone glucagon becomes more active, prompting the body to tap into stored fat for energy. Foods like extra virgin olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, and fatty fish are rich in compounds that reduce inflammation, feed the mitochondria, and activate pathways that promote steady fat burning. These foods do not trigger insulin spikes, allowing the body to stay in a fat-burning state for longer periods. Instead of constant hunger and dependence on carbohydrates, the body experiences stable energy and improved metabolic performance. Protein also activates important fat-burning pathways. When you eat protein, your body increases thermogenesis, the process of generating heat from food. This increases calorie expenditure even at rest. Protein also helps regulate hormones related to hunger and satiety, including ghrelin and leptin. By keeping hunger under control and providing the building blocks for muscle repair, protein supports a leaner, stronger metabolism. Muscle tissue burns more calories than fat tissue even when you're not active, so adequate protein intake helps accelerate long-term fat loss. Certain plant-based foods activate metabolic pathways through their antioxidants, polyphenol, and phytonutrients. These compounds can influence gene expression, reduce oxidative stress, and support mitochondrial efficiency. Mitochondria are the engines of fat burning, and when they are nourished with the right compounds, they become more efficient at converting fat into usable energy. Foods like berries, leafy greens, herbs, spices, and green tea contain powerful molecules that stimulate fat oxidation and calm inflammation. They do more than nourish the body. They instruct it to become more efficient, more balanced, and more metabolically active. Spices like turmeric, ginger, cinnamon, and cayenne pepper have unique effects on metabolic pathways. They can help regulate blood sugar, increase thermogenesis, reduce inflammation, and improve insulin sensitivity. Each of these effects contributes to a body environment that is primed for fat burning. Even small amounts of these spices consumed consistently can create measurable improvements in metabolic health. This is why traditional cultures that often incorporated these spices daily had lower rates of obesity and chronic metabolic diseases. Fiber-rich foods also play a vital role in activating fat-burning pathways. Fiber slows digestion, prevents glucose spikes, supports gut health, and feeds beneficial bacteria in the digestive system. A healthy gut microbiome is closely linked to metabolic health. Certain gut bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids that improve insulin sensitivity, reduce inflammation, and support fat burning. Foods like vegetables, legumes, seeds, and low-sugar fruits nourish these bacteria, helping them produce compounds that strengthen metabolic function. When the diet is dominated by foods that activate fat-burning pathways, the body shifts into a healthier rhythm. Energy becomes more consistent, cravings soften, hunger becomes more predictable, and fat stores begin to mobilize more easily. Instead of working against your biology with extreme restriction, you work with it by choosing foods that naturally guide your metabolism in the right direction. These foods calm the hormonal chaos created by processed sugars, refined oils, and chemical additives. They bring the body back into alignment, strengthening metabolic pathways that may have been weakened over years of poor nutrition or chronic inflammation. This is why what you eat is just as important as how much you eat. The right foods do far more than fill your stomach. They communicate with your hormones, your cells, and your metabolic machinery. They turn on the pathways that help your body burn fat faster, repair itself more efficiently, and maintain energy without constant cravings or fatigue. When you understand the power of these foods, fat loss becomes a natural outcome of nourishing your metabolism instead of fighting it. Eating strategically can lower insulin levels and unlock stored fat. This principle is far more important than counting calories or forcing yourself into extreme diets. Insulin is a master storage hormone, and when it stays high throughout the day, your body has no choice but to hold on to fat, because insulin's primary job is to store energy, not release it. When insulin is elevated, fat burning shuts off. When insulin drops, fat burning turns back on. This simple shift explains why two people can eat the same number of calories but experience completely different outcomes. The person who keeps insulin low will burn more fat, feel more stable energy, and experience fewer cravings, while the person whose insulin is constantly spiking will feel hungry, tired, and stuck in a cycle of fat storage. Understanding this mechanism is one of the keys to unlocking more predictable, steady, and natural fat loss. Strategic eating isn't about eating less. It's about eating in a way that aligns with your body's hormonal rhythm. Every meal, every snack, and every bite send a hormonal message. When you eat foods that cause rapid blood sugar spikes, like refined breads, sugary snacks, and ultra-processed carbohydrates, insulin surges. These repeated insulin bursts throughout the day keep the body locked in storage mode. Even small snacks, even healthy-looking ones, can trigger insulin enough to block fat burning for hours. This is why some people feel like they're doing everything right, yet see no progress on the scale. The body never gets a sustained window of low insulin, and as a result, it never gets permission to tap into fat reserves. Lowering insulin requires eating in a way that maintains stable blood sugar. This doesn't mean you must avoid carbohydrates forever. It means choosing foods that digest slowly, provide nourishment, and support balanced hormones. When you choose whole, nutrient-dense foods with fiber, healthy fats, and quality protein, blood sugar rises gently instead of spiking sharply. The body releases insulin in smaller amounts, giving you energy without shutting off fat burning for long periods. The key is to create long windows of time where insulin is naturally low, allowing the body to shift toward using stored fat as fuel. This process is not forced. It's simply the body returning to its natural metabolic rhythm. Strategic eating also involves paying attention to meal timing. Constant snacking keeps insulin elevated because the body never has time to finish processing one meal before another arrives. But when you eat structured meals with intentional spacing, insulin has time to come back down. Even a gap of a few hours between meals can make a significant difference. Longer overnight gaps created simply by avoiding late-night eating allow insulin to drop further, giving the body a stronger opportunity to burn fat during sleep. These natural fasting windows, which happen automatically when you stop eating after a certain time, help unlock fat reserves without any feeling of deprivation. Another powerful way to lower insulin through strategic eating is to include foods that actively stabilize blood sugar. Healthy fats like olive oil, nuts, avocados, and seeds slow digestion and help prevent sharp glucose spikes. Protein is essential for maintaining muscle and keeping hunger controlled, reducing the urge to snack. Fiber-rich vegetables and low-sugar fruits help smooth out glucose absorption, keeping insulin levels steady. When you combine these elements in your meals, you create an internal environment where insulin remains calm instead of reactive. This calm hormonal state is where fat burning becomes possible and sustainable. One of the most overlooked aspects of insulin is its connection to hunger. When insulin rises sharply, hunger often follows shortly after because rapid blood sugar swings create cravings and energy crashes. People interpret this as a lack of willpower, but it is purely biological. When you eat strategically, keeping insulin steady, hunger becomes more predictable and less urgent. Instead of craving sugar or needing constant snacks, you feel fuller for longer, allowing your body to rely more on stored fat during the period between meals. This shift in hunger patterns is one of the earliest signs that your insulin is stabilizing and fat burning is increasing. Strategic eating also supports metabolic flexibility, which determines how efficiently your body can switch between burning glucose and burning fat. When insulin is always elevated, metabolic flexibility weakens because the body becomes dependent on external fuel sources. But when insulin periodically drops, the body strengthens its ability to use stored fat, improving energy stability and reducing reliance on sugar. This is why people who lower insulin often notice mental clarity, steady energy, and fewer mood swings. Their metabolism becomes more stable because it is no longer trapped in a cycle of constant glucose demand. By learning how to eat in a way that respects insulin's natural rhythm, you give your body access to a powerful fat-burning system that already exists within you. You stop seeing food as the enemy and start viewing it as a tool that shapes your hormonal landscape. Strategic eating is not about restriction. It's about alignment, choosing foods and timing that allow insulin to rise when necessary, fall when appropriate, and create the metabolic conditions where stored fat can finally be unlocked. Anti-inflammatory foods reduce cellular stress and improve energy. This is one of the most significant yet overlooked keys to transforming your health and accelerating fat loss. Inside your body, every cell is constantly responding to the environment you create through your diet, lifestyle, and daily habits. When inflammation is high, cells become stressed, communication between hormones weakens, and metabolic functions slow down. But when inflammation is lowered, cells begin to operate with clarity, efficiency, and balance. The foods you eat play a direct role in determining which of these states your body experiences. Anti-inflammatory foods create conditions where healing becomes easier, fat burning becomes smoother, and energy becomes more stable throughout the day. Cellular stress occurs when the body is overwhelmed by inflammatory triggers. Processed foods, refined sugars, artificial additives, low-quality oils, chronic stress, and environmental toxins. These stressors force cells to use more energy for protection and defense rather than for repair and fat metabolism. Think of it like a fire inside your body. When inflammation rises, the body's resources are diverted to controlling the flames, leaving little energy for anything else. This is why people with chronic inflammation often feel tired, sluggish, mentally foggy, and emotionally drained. Their cells are simply too stressed to function efficiently. Anti-inflammatory foods work like water on this internal fire, calming the stress response and giving cells the space to heal and operate at full capacity. At the metabolic level, inflammation disrupts the pathways responsible for converting food into energy. Mitochondria suffer the most. When mitochondria are inflamed, they produce less energy and more oxidative stress. This leads to slower metabolism, stubborn fat storage, and a constant feeling of fatigue. But anti-inflammatory foods are rich in antioxidants, polyphenol, and nutrients that repair mitochondrial damage and support their function. When mitochondria return to optimal health, your metabolism becomes more efficient, energy levels rise, and the body becomes more capable of burning stored fat throughout the day. One of the ways anti-inflammatory foods improve energy is by stabilizing blood sugar and reducing insulin spikes. Sugary foods and processed carbohydrates cause rapid rises in blood sugar, which lead to inflammation and energy crashes. But foods like leafy greens, berries, nuts, seeds, herbs, fatty fish, and olive oil slow down glucose absorption, helping maintain steady energy. This steadiness is not just physical. It improves mental clarity, mood, and focus. When inflammation is low and blood sugar is stable, the brain receives a consistent supply of fuel, allowing you to think clearly and feel more emotionally balanced. Another powerful benefit of anti-inflammatory foods is their impact on the gut. The gut is home to trillions of bacteria that influence digestion, immunity, hormone regulation, and even fat burning. When inflammation damages the gut lining or disrupts the microbiome, the body struggles to absorb nutrients properly, leading to bloating, cravings, and metabolic imbalance. Anti-inflammatory foods, especially those rich in fiber and antioxidants, help repair the gut lining and feed beneficial bacteria. As the gut heals, digestion improves, cravings decrease, and the metabolic system becomes more efficient. A healthier gut environment produces short-chain fatty acids that directly reduce inflammation and improve insulin sensitivity, accelerating fat burning from within. Many anti-inflammatory foods also contain compounds that actively switch off harmful inflammatory pathways in the body. For example, omega-3 fatty acids from fatty fish reduce pro-inflammatory molecules that contribute to joint pain, water retention, and stubborn belly fat. Turmeric contains curcumin, which interferes with inflammatory enzymes and supports cellular repair. Ginger, garlic, cinnamon, and berries contain polyphenol that neutralize free radicals and support detoxification. These foods don't just reduce inflammation temporarily. They create long-term changes that help the body maintain an internal environment where healing and fat loss can thrive. Anti-inflammatory eating supports hormone balance as well. Chronic inflammation interferes with hormones like insulin, cortisol, leptin, and thyroid hormones. When these hormones are disrupted, fat burning slows down, cravings increase, and energy becomes unstable. As inflammation decreases, hormonal communication improves, allowing the body to regulate hunger more effectively, manage stress better, and maintain a stable metabolism. People often notice improvements in sleep, mood, and appetite once they begin adding anti-inflammatory foods into their routine because a hormonal load on their body begins to lighten. The cumulative effect of lowering inflammation through food is profound. As cellular stress decreases, the body shifts out of survival mode and into healing mode. Energy production increases, fat-burning pathways open up, and inflammation-related symptoms begin to fade. You feel lighter, more clear-headed, and more grounded. Your body stops fighting against you and starts working with you. Real whole foods work better than restrictive diets or extreme calorie cutting. This truth becomes clearer the moment you understand how the body actually functions. Your body does not thrive on deprivation, confusion, or punishment. It thrives on nourishment, clarity, and balance. Extreme dieting forces the body into stress, triggering hormonal reactions that slow metabolism, increase cravings, elevate cortisol, and make fat burning harder. But whole, unprocessed foods send a completely different message. They signal safety, stability, and nourishment, allowing your metabolism to operate in the way it was designed. The difference between eating less and eating right is enormous. This distinction is where true sustainable fat loss begins. Restrictive diets often fail because they focus on quantity rather than quality. When you cut calories drastically, the body interprets this as a sign of scarcity. In response, it slows down metabolism to conserve energy, making fat loss stall, hunger intensifies, cravings grow stronger, and energy declines. Over time, this creates a cycle of frustration, binge-eating guilt, and restarting diets over and over again. But when you fuel your body with whole foods rich in fiber, vitamins, minerals, healthy fats, and antioxidants, the body does not feel threatened. It feels supported. And when the body feels supported, it becomes far more willing to release stored fat. Whole foods provide the nutrients your cells need to function efficiently. Fiber slows digestion and keeps blood sugar stable, preventing insulin spikes that block fat burning. Healthy fats nourish hormones, support brain function, and provide long-lasting energy. Protein helps maintain lean muscle mass, which increases your metabolic rate and enhances the body's ability to burn fat. Fresh vegetables and fruits contain antioxidants that reduce inflammation, improve mitochondrial health, and protect the body from oxidative stress. All these factors work together to create an environment where fat loss becomes natural instead of forced. One of the most powerful benefits of whole foods is their impact on satiety. When you eat real foods, your body receives the nutrients and energy it needs, sending clear signals of fullness to your brain. This reduces the urge to snack, binge, or graze throughout the day. Processed foods, on the other hand, are engineered to be hyperpalatable but nutrient-poor. They trigger overeating because the body is still searching for missing nutrients. This is why people can eat large amounts of junk food and still feel hungry shortly afterward. Whole foods break this cycle by giving the body what it truly needs, stabilizing hunger and making fat loss feel effortless. Another crucial aspect is the way whole foods support hormonal balance. Hormones control everything related to weight, hunger, metabolism, stress, fat storage, and energy production. Processed foods, artificial ingredients, and refined sugars disrupt these hormones, causing cravings, mood swings, insulin spikes, and fat accumulation. But whole foods help regulate hormones naturally. They reduce inflammation, which allows hormonal communication to function properly. They calm cortisol levels, easing stress-related belly fat. They improve insulin sensitivity, which unlocks stored fat. When hormones operate smoothly, fat burning becomes significantly more predictable and consistent. Whole foods also support digestive health, which plays a major role in metabolism. A healthy gut microbiome helps produce short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation, stabilize blood sugar, and enhance fat burning. Whole foods, especially those rich in fiber like vegetables, beans, seeds, and whole grains, feed beneficial bacteria and strengthen the gut lining. This improves digestion, reduces bloating, increases nutrient absorption. Processed foods do the opposite. They weaken the gut microbiome, increase inflammation, and contribute to metabolic disorders. Healing the gut through whole foods leads to improved energy, lighter digestion, and better control of hunger signals. Another overlooked benefit of eating real foods is the impact on energy levels. Restrictive diets often leave people drained, irritable, and mentally foggy. This lack of energy makes it harder to stay consistent with healthy habits. Whole foods, however, provide steady, slow-burning fuel that supports sustained energy throughout the day. They stabilize blood sugar, prevent crashes, and improve mitochondrial function. Energy levels rise, motivation improves, mood becomes more stable, and the body becomes more resilient to stress. This creates a powerful upward spiral that supports long-term fat loss and health. Whole foods also help the body detox naturally. Many people misunderstand detoxification, thinking it requires special drinks or extreme cleanses. But the body detoxes every day through the liver, kidneys, skin, and gut, and it performs this process more efficiently when fueled with natural, unprocessed foods. Leafy greens, herbs, spices, berries, nuts, seeds, and clean proteins all support the body's detox pathways. When detoxification improves, inflammation decreases, metabolism speeds up, and fat burning becomes easier. Ultimately, whole foods work better because they align with the body's natural design. They provide nourishment instead of stress, clarity instead of confusion, balance instead of chaos. They communicate with your hormones, your cells, your metabolism, and your mind in a way that restrictive diets never can. When you build your meals around whole foods, your body responds with better energy, calmer hunger, improved digestion, and a metabolism that feels like it's finally working with you instead of against you. The timing and quality of what you eat have a stronger impact than quantity. This single principle reshapes the entire approach to fat loss, energy, and metabolic health. People are taught to obsess over calories, but the body does not operate like a simple math equation. It operates on rhythms, hormones, and signals. These signals are influenced by when you eat and what you eat far more than how much you eat. Two people can consume the same number of calories in a day and experience completely different outcomes depending on the timing of those calories and the quality of the foods they chose. The distinction lies in how their bodies respond hormonally, how their blood sugar behaves, and how their metabolism shifts throughout the day. The timing of your meals has a direct effect on insulin, the hormone that controls fat storage and fat release. Every time you eat, insulin rises. When you eat constantly, snacking between meals, eating late at night, grazing throughout the day, insulin stays elevated. Elevated insulin keeps the body locked in fat storage mode regardless of calorie intake. But when you shorten your eating window, space out meals, or avoid unnecessary snacking, insulin has time to drop. When insulin drops, fat burning turns on. This means a simple act of creating longer gaps between meals can enhance fat loss even without changing what you eat. And when you combine better timing with high-quality foods, the effect becomes even more powerful. Eating late at night is one of the most common habits that disrupt metabolic rhythm. At night, your body prepares for rest, repair, and hormonal reset. Eating during this time forces your metabolism to stay active, spikes insulin, and interferes with your natural circadian rhythm. Studies and practical experience both show that late-night eating leads to more fat storage compared to eating earlier in the day, even with the same number of calories. By simply avoiding heavy meals before bed and allowing your body a longer overnight fasting window, insulin naturally falls and fat burning improves during sleep. It is one of the easiest adjustments with some of the biggest benefits. Morning eating patterns also matter. Starting the day with processed carbohydrates and sugary foods leads to a cascade of blood sugar spikes and crashes that push the body into constant hunger, fatigue, and cravings. But when the first meal of the day is built around protein, healthy fats, and fiber, blood sugar stays stable. This sets the tone for smoother energy, fewer cravings, and better hormonal balance throughout the rest of the day. Quality is equally important. High-quality foods, whole, unprocessed, nutrient-dense, send clean, stable signals to your metabolism. They digest more slowly, keep blood sugar steady, nourish your gut, support your hormones, and reduce inflammation. Low-quality foods do the opposite. Trigger insulin spikes, contribute to inflammation, disrupt gut bacteria, and provide empty calories with little nutritional value. It's not the number of calories in processed foods that make them harmful. It's their biological impact. They create hormonal chaos that encourages fat storage, hunger, cravings, and energy crashes. Meanwhile, whole foods provide vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, and healthy fats that support the processes involved in fat burning, healing, and energy production. Quality also determines how your body interprets hunger. When you eat low-quality foods, the body senses nutrient deficiency and responds by increasing hunger in an attempt to get the nutrients it needs. When you eat high-quality foods, the body feels satisfied and nourished. Hunger stabilizes, cravings decrease, and portion control becomes effortless. The relationship between timing and quality becomes even more powerful when they are combined. Eating high-quality foods during windows when your body is most receptive to nourishment, earlier in the day, during active hours, and spaced appropriately, allows your metabolism to work with maximum efficiency. When you align your eating schedule with your body's natural rhythms, something remarkable happens. Your energy becomes more stable. Your hunger becomes more predictable. Your mood becomes more balanced. Your body becomes more efficient at accessing stored fat. It is not just about eating less. It is about eating with intention. When meals are timed well and made of high-quality foods, the body feels supported rather than overwhelmed. It responds by lowering insulin, reducing inflammation, and strengthening metabolic flexibility. This creates a steady path toward fat loss without the frustration, fatigue, or deprivation that comes from focusing solely on calories. When you begin to understand how hunger hormones truly work, everything about fat loss becomes clearer and far less frustrating. Most people assume that hunger is simply a matter of having an empty stomach. But hunger is far more influenced by hormones than by how much food you physically have inside you. One of the most important hormones in this process is ghrelin, often called the hunger hormone. It rises and falls in predictable waves throughout the day, and those waves are shaped by your habits, your meal patterns, and the kinds of foods you choose to eat. When you learn how to calm these hunger signals, you immediately gain control over your body's ability to burn fat. This is why certain foods that stabilize hormones are far more powerful than any restrictive diet or complicated routine. They allow the body to shift into a state where you are no longer fighting cravings every few hours, no longer dealing with intense appetite spikes, and no longer feeling as though your mind and body are pulling in opposite directions. One of the key reasons people struggle with fat loss is because their hunger hormones have been overstimulated for years. Constant snacking, ultra-processed foods, sugary drinks, and inconsistent eating patterns train the body to expect frequent incoming calories. This pushes ghrelin to rise more often, creating the feeling of constant hunger, even when the body has more than enough stored energy. When this happens, Fat burning slows down because the body always prioritizes using incoming calories instead of tapping into the fat reserves you want to lose. But when you introduce foods that support hormonal calmness, foods rich in fiber, natural fats, and anti-inflammatory compounds, you begin retraining your hunger hormones. The waves of ghrelin become smaller, the appetite becomes steadier, and you create the internal environment that allows stored fat to be used consistently throughout the day. Another key player is leptin, the hormone responsible for signaling fullness and energy balance. Over time, inflammation can make the body less responsive to leptin, which leads to overeating and sluggish metabolic function. When inflammation is high, the brain receives weaker signals that you are full even after eating meals that should have been satisfying. This creates a loop where the brain continues sending hunger signals and the body continues storing more fat because insulin levels are constantly elevated. But when you introduce foods that reduce inflammation, the leptin pathways start functioning more clearly again. This helps the brain detect fullness properly, stabilizes appetite, and naturally reduces calorie intake without force or restriction. You feel satisfied sooner, stay full longer, and find it easier to make choices that support your health rather than fight against your cravings. Foods that calm hunger hormones often share similar characteristics. They digest slowly, do not spike insulin aggressively, and nourish the gut in ways that balance hormone production. When food digests slowly, it gives your body a more sustained release of energy, preventing the sharp crashes in blood sugar that trigger sudden hunger. When insulin stays stable, your body does not feel pressure to demand more food because it can access stored fat for fuel. And when your gut is nourished with fibers and healthy fats, the gut-brain connection becomes stronger and more efficient, reducing emotional eating and unnecessary appetite spikes. This is why people who shift toward whole foods often notice that their hunger becomes more predictable and far less overwhelming. There's also the psychological side of hunger that these foods help address. When hunger hormones are stable, your mental clarity improves, your mood steadies, and decisions around food become much easier. You stop thinking about food constantly. You no longer have the mental exhaustion that comes from fighting cravings hour by hour. Instead, you feel in control, grounded, and aligned with your body's natural rhythm. This creates a powerful cycle. Better food choices lead to calmer hormones. Calm hormones lead to better decisions, and better decisions lead to consistent fat loss. It becomes a flow instead of a battle. Many people believe willpower is the key to fat loss, but in reality, hormone balance plays a far larger role. You cannot rely on willpower alone to fight against biochemical signals that are designed to force you to eat. But when the foods you eat support hormone health, willpower is no longer the center of the equation. You no longer need to fight yourself. Instead, you guide your body into a state where fat burning is its natural mode, where hunger is calm and manageable, and where cravings do not sabotage your progress. Nutrient-dense fats improve metabolism and reduce inflammation. This is one of the most overlooked but powerful ways to support fat loss and overall health. Fats are often misunderstood. Consuming them does not automatically lead to weight gain. In fact, certain fats are essential for signaling the body to burn fat efficiently, regulating hormones, calming inflammation, and providing stable energy throughout the day. When included strategically in your diet, nutrient-dense fats create an internal environment that supports metabolic health, stabilizes blood sugar, and enhances fat burning, all while reducing the cellular stress that often blocks these processes. The body requires fat for hormone production, including hormones that regulate metabolism, hunger, and stress. When the diet lacks healthy fats, hormone production suffers, leading to disrupted appetite regulation, slower metabolism, and increased fat storage. Conversely, consuming nutrient-dense fats like olive oil, avocados, fatty fish, nuts, and seeds provides the building blocks for optimal hormone production. These fats do more than supply calories. They signal to the body that it is nourished and safe, reducing stress responses, calming inflammation, and allowing fat-burning pathways to activate more efficiently. Healthy fats also have strong anti-inflammatory properties. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fatty fish, flax seeds, and walnuts are particularly effective at reducing inflammation at the cellular level. Monounsaturated fats like those in olive oil and avocados help calm oxidative stress and support mitochondrial function. By lowering inflammation, these fats improve insulin sensitivity, restore leptin signaling, and strengthen the body's ability to access fat stores efficiently. Another key benefit is their effect on satiety and hunger regulation. Fats are digested slowly, sending signals to the brain that reduce appetite and cravings. This helps prevent overeating and reduces the spikes and crashes in energy that accompany carbohydrate-heavy meals. When hunger is managed, the body naturally relies more on stored fat for energy between meals. Fats also support cellular energy production. Mitochondria burn fat to create ATP, the energy currency of the body. Nutrient-dense fats provide the substrates necessary for mitochondria to function efficiently, enhancing metabolic rate and energy production. When mitochondrial efficiency improves, the body can use fat as a primary fuel source even at rest, increasing overall fat-burning capacity. By including the right fats in your diet, you create an internal environment where metabolism can operate optimally. Insulin is regulated, inflammation decreases, hunger hormones stabilize, and mitochondria function efficiently. Your body no longer views fat as a threat. It begins to use it as a source of fuel. Energy becomes steady, mental clarity improves, and fat-burning pathways are naturally enhanced. Consistency in eating patterns amplifies fat-burning results over time. This is one of the most powerful yet underestimated principles for achieving long-term health and metabolic efficiency. Many people approach fat loss with short bursts of extreme effort only to experience frustration, rebound weight gain, or metabolic burnout. The truth is that the body responds far more effectively to regular, predictable patterns than to erratic extreme measures. Consistency is the signal your body relies on to regulate hormones, stabilize metabolism, and optimize fat-burning pathways. When the body learns what to expect from day to day, it shifts into an efficient, self-sustaining rhythm where stored fat is used as energy without constant struggle or deprivation. Consistent meal timing and food choices stabilize insulin levels, creating a predictable environment in which fat-burning pathways can operate effectively. Irregular eating patterns cause wide swings in insulin that confuse the body's metabolic system. When insulin is erratic, fat burning is blocked, energy crashes occur, and cravings intensify. Consistency also plays a crucial role in hormonal regulation beyond insulin. Leptin, ghrelin, cortisol, and thyroid hormones are sensitive to both what and when you eat. When meals follow a predictable pattern with nutrient-dense foods, leptin and ghrelin stabilize, hunger becomes manageable, cortisol is less likely to spike, and thyroid hormones operate efficiently. Meal composition and quality are critical components of consistency. Consistently choosing foods rich in protein, fiber, healthy fats, and micronutrients ensures your body receives the essential building blocks it needs. Gut health is another factor influenced by consistent eating. Consistently consuming high-fiber, antioxidant-rich foods nourishes beneficial bacteria, strengthens the gut lining, and reduces chronic inflammation, creating a feedback loop that enhances fat burning over time. Behavioral and psychological consistency also contribute to fat loss success. When eating habits are predictable and sustainable, the mental load of decision-making is reduced. Adopting consistent patterns that are flexible, enjoyable, and realistic allows the mind and body to align. This reduces stress, improves adherence, and allows the body to focus energy on metabolism rather than survival. Ultimately, fat loss and metabolic health are not achieved through extreme or sporadic interventions, but through reliable, repeatable habits. When meals are consistent in timing, composition, and quality, hormones stabilize, insulin levels are optimized, hunger is predictable, and the body naturally relies on stored fat for energy. The cumulative effects of daily disciplined choices create a metabolic environment in which fat burning becomes the body's default state. Over time, this consistency transforms energy levels, appetite control, hormone function, and body composition.